Yo, what's up?
Hey, what's
What's
up, man?
up?
Do it
What's going
live.
on?
Do it
Yeah,
live.
NBC.
Man,
Jesus Christ, what did we just watch?
What a
uh, I'm
shit show.
I was kind of in a fugue state while I was watching this shit. I was like, it was a shit show as expected, but like it's like the realization started to set in, and I was like, oh yeah, we're fucked. You know what I mean? Like I knew we were fucked. This isn't a surprise, but this was just further confirmation of what I knew, and it was kind of sobering to watch this shit go down the way it did. I was like, and you know what? For me, if you're being honest, like it doesn't. There is people can ask like who won, and they could debate it, but it really doesn't matter because for the Biden people, he won, and for the Trump people, he won.
Right. I don't think this swayed anyone
Right. It didn't
in any
sway. It
direction.
didn't sway anybody. You
Yeah.
know. So like when he calls him a clown, they of course people are gonna eat that up, and when Trump does his whole
Yeah.
shtick, his side's gonna eat it up. If you're being honest though, if I'm being honest from outside eyes, I mean I don't like either candidate. Obviously, I'm
Yeah.
extremely
Same.
vocal about not liking either one because they're offering no one anything. But aesthetically, if I had to pick like who's my aesthetic preference, I think Trump aesthetically it was actually better. Like you know what I'm saying? Just in terms of like because Biden is just such an
Yeah.
incoherent. You
The
know what I mean?
optics of it, basically.
Right, the optics
yeah.
of it. Like Trump's awful. You know what I mean? But in terms of just like put together
The
and
energy
just,
level.
right,
And,
it was
having
just
shit
like
to say.
right, and being able to respond to Biden, like just respond back. It didn't matter if he was saying absolute bullshit when he did it. He was just on.
He was there for a scrap.
Right, and Biden was just, he was as we've been
Get a
watching.
load of this guy. Can you fucking believe this guy? That's his
Come
whole
on,
vibe.
man.
Here's the deal.
I'm
Here's
pretty
the
sure
deal.
the only person
Yeah.
who won tonight was ISIS. Pretty sure.
Right.
Oh yes, ISIS, those freedom fighters.
Right.
Long live ISIS.
Oh man, someone's going to clip that.
Right. They'll be like, see, look at this lefty.
Told
crazy
you,
radical.
Marxist.
Right. They were like, they even mentioned that like they kept talking about like these radical cities. I'm like, where are these radical cities that are controlled by the radical left? Please. I think it was Josh Olson that tweeted that, and I retweeted it. It's like, yeah, I want to know where these like radical left cities are so I can move there. I'm like, please let me. I would move there too in a heartbeat.
You talking about
Like,
no, I will not read your fucking screenplay, Josh Olson?
Yeah, that Josh Olson.
What's up, Olson?
Yeah. So
I'll
like,
drink to that.
I'm totally like, yeah, I won't read your fucking screenplay either. But also, I would rather live in this utopia, this radical left utopian cities that somewhere exist somewhere that I've never been in this America ever in my whole life.
Yeah,
So,
not even close. You know, where I am, Milwaukee, is the only major city to ever have actual socialist leadership.
yes, we talked about that.
That article,
Yeah. We talked about that. Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Which is very interesting. I'm like, I wasn't even aware of that until you told me that. Yeah, it's just pretty crazy.
Which is so funny because Milwaukee's in the middle of Wisconsin, which, hell, we know people. Not going to name names. All about the swing state voters. They're on this swing state voter scarlet letter tour and shit.
Yeah. I don't see how that's a good strategy. I don't see if you live in the coast, if you're a coastal elite, right? If you live on the coast, how do you think browbeating and trying to voter shame people in the swing states is actually going to work as a successful strategy to get them into the ballots in November, the ballot box? It's not going to work, dude. It's never worked. And like, people are going to resent you. They're just going to look at you like, fuck you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what they're going to do. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so.
Done it before.
Right. It's like, they're like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Who are you to tell me? You live in a state where it's not even of consequence whether you vote or not. You know what I mean? So, but you're looking at us. It's like, why don't you move to a state?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Where it's more consequence than Mr. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that type of argument is just like, yeah.
Truth. Move to Kentucky and get fucking Mitch McConnell out. Put your money where your mouth is.
Put your money where your mouth is. It's easy to say that when you live in LA or if you live in New York City. It's like, all right, it's a foregone conclusion. Those are the numbers are there. It's going to go blue. You know what I'm saying? That's the whole reason like that I thought the primaries was a total farce when Biden pulled ahead. I mean, for various reasons, it was a total farce. Besides the consolidation of the establishment, to take down Sanders, but the simple fact that like Biden did great in South Carolina. Oh my God, so what? He's not going to win South Carolina. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Biden did well in all these southern states that are traditionally red states. They're
Right, it's the force for the tree
Right,
shit. He
right.
did well against other Democrats in a place
Right.
that will not vote for a
Right.
Democrat.
He did well in all the places where Democrats were going to lose. So like, how does that
Right.
translate
Yeah.
to him doing well? You know what I mean? In the general election, it's like, it's so like nonsensical. Like, I just don't get it. Like, I get it because they really don't want to win. You know what I mean? They really don't want to win. Like,
remember
they
how
can say
Obama talked about people clinging to their Bibles and their guns and shit? That's basically like rednecks and conservatives. Liberals cling to dumb shit like this, little Pyrrhic victories and shit that mean nothing, you know?
Right. They're obsessed with they're actually obsessed with like you said, that Pyrrhic victory, that like they would rather lose the right way. Like, you know what I mean? In their mind, they're like, well, they were, I think liberals, like, the difference between Republicans and liberals is like Republicans reward people like for like winning, right? Like if they do something, like the Republicans will like reward that person. Like there's usually like any sort of like former Republican political figure that's been, whether they were in Congress or whether they were even, you know, at any level of our government, when
they get a Fox News position, when
right? Not only that, when they retire, they get these like, they give them these great, like, you know, lobbying jobs and shit, and political consultation jobs. When liberals when they lose, right? So you got a guy like a Beto O'Rourke who loses, you know what I'm saying? Then they want to like give this guy everything, you know what I'm saying? They want to give him the keys. And what they usually do is they give you like a Netflix deal. Wall
Street
and shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah,
Hillary and Bill and Obama
for
have done pretty well on Wall Street with the speeches and shit.
Oh yeah, that too. You can go on a speaking tour. Yeah, you can go on the Wall Street speaking tour, and it pays you very well. Yeah. So, but like, it just kills me when we have these conversations and you just listen to like both sides, like, and both sides pretend like they're like there's so much mirror images of each other. It's just like a bizarro mirror where it's like, oh, like it's just flipped. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
You know what I mean? But it's like they're so similar. Like they're so similar.
They're still just old white dudes that are kind of, you know, dotards, to use Kim Jong-un's word.
Dotard.
But and where I keep going back to is just our system in general, just representatives, you know, any of these guys representing us, where we're at a point now where we should be able to vote on issues versus like having all these corruptible.
That's something even Colby like agreed on. About. Of all people, it's like, can we just vote most issues and get the fuck out, get these clowns out of here?
Yeah,
we're stuck with it.
I consider this the palate cleanser.
Right.
After the Colby interview.
Oh, gotcha.
The palate cleanser. I commend you. I already told Jason that I commend you for having him on. Like, I feel like, you know, yes, there's going to be plenty of people who are going to be like, fuck that guy, and I understand it. Trust me, I do. But there is something to be said about being willing to engage people, you know what I'm saying, who have beliefs who you disagree with. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, there's a lot of times where you're like, yeah, fuck that guy or whatever. And I understand it. I say it, and I've done it plenty of times. But there has to be
where does it lead? That's the question.
Yeah, where does it lead? Exactly.
We've been more and more thinking not fuck that guy because, you know, you're not going to get anywhere that way. It is better to listen to each other, find common ground, break bread, discuss. We could be adults and discuss our disagreements on policy or whatever.
Right, exactly. But I feel like, you know, people forget this. And, you know, it comes back to like, we don't have a sense of class consciousness like previous generations have. You know what I mean? So like, but there is an understanding in previous generations in terms of like, in terms of like class solidarity, like, okay, like we're all in this boat together in terms of our class. And there are going to be issues that we fundamentally disagree with, but that does not mean that we can't move together in solidarity about the big shit, about the important shit. You know what I'm saying? Because you best believe when it comes to like a certain class interest, when you scale up, when it comes to like the wealthy, like they move you can see like they protect each other. It doesn't matter if ideologically they're opposed. Like I'm a conservative. Like when it comes to like that tax bracket, they move in lockstep with each other. You know what I mean? Like that's what we like. We don't do that in terms of like the proletariat, so to speak. Like we don't do that when it comes to working class and poor. We're so divided You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Well, that's exactly why we want to talk to people like that, to find that common interest and all work towards the common interest. Because again, this racism and everything that's used to divide us, none of it. I mean, here's the funny thing: is that it's all. I don't know, I feel so depressed after watching this whole thing. Like talking,
I felt like I needed a shower.
Yeah. I just started. I was like, I need to drink. I need to drink. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
When they didn't shake hands, that was like one of the first things in the drinking game. So I took a shot then, but then after that, I just.
But they had an excuse.
Took them randomly.
They had
coronavirus.
They used the COVID as an excuse. I didn't. I feel like that was just convenient.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they would have shook hands whether COVID was an issue.
Trump wouldn't have for sure. Biden might have. See, Biden again, he is more diplomatic. I'll give him that, but it's just not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to look nice and feel better. But
yeah, I think Biden. Like, why didn't he mention Herman Cain? Like, why didn't he bring up Herman Cain ever?
Like, that was if he would too, because when they were talking about the gatherings and how that might have exposed people, they touched on that briefly.
Right. It was a layup.
If they would mention that if he would, exactly.
It was a fucking alley-oop.
But like Jay said, he's trying to be a decent person or whatever, and not play that way. I guess. But yeah. I
don't know about that, because here's a guy who, like, he called him a clown. He said he said. What did he say? There's a lot
that's
of
a different level than like someone's death, and stuff like.
Yeah, but
he did blame hundreds of thousands of deaths on him. So
right. It was like you let Herman Cain come to your rally and he died of COVID. Like that was right there for him to and he just didn't.
Well, maybe his hesitation, and I thought of this at that moment too, is that the usual response to that is that you can't prove that that's where he got it. That's usually what I hear to that. Right. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, Herman Cain's black. That's probably what Jason nailed it.
Exactly. All right, well, back to what I was just saying before I got all depressed and just gave up on it. The things we let divide us, race and all this shit, it's all shit that gets in the way of us galvanizing to wage this class war that we all should be waging together, because we all have the proletariat in common, regardless of these differences that divide us. But the funny thing is, all the systemic issues that we're fighting over, like race and inequality and everything, are all the class issue.
Yeah.
They're all tied up in it.
Yes.
The racial issue in America is very much a class issue.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's very much a class issue. And I just recently finished Soul on Ice, which is the Eldridge Cleaver's, Eldridge Cleaver novel. Like, this is back in it came out like back in the 60s or whatever. He wrote it while he was in prison. So it's like some of it's his prison memoirs.
How's his prose? Is that shit any good?
Pretty good, man. It's fucking
Sweet.
good. The guy can write, you know what I'm saying? Like,
for sure.
But just listening to him write about like his opinions on the social movement, why he was incarcerated, like the things like, these like hallmark events, or these, these milestones in history, like whether it was the assassination of Malcolm X, the Watts riots, just all the shit that was going on, like via the civil rights movement of that time, and just how it mirrors today is like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's like the same shit applies today as it did then, in that era, for those people alive and of our age and younger. Like, it's very much like very similar to the same issues that we're talking about now in 2020, which is sad when you really think about it.
Yeah, no progress.
There's like really hasn't been much progress. You know what I mean? And the issues and the things that they were talking about, like it just like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like stuff in there that's like, like he's a problematic figure in a lot of ways, but like who isn't? But but I did find a lot of the stuff that he had to say, you know what I'm saying, from a standpoint of him being like not only a black guy, in that era, but a guy who was incarcerated. And then you get to read some of his, it progresses, because it's not just memoirs of one period. It's also like memoirs of, him further down the line, his letters to his lawyer, which he had like,
nice. That's interesting.
He fell in love with his lawyer. And there's like some letters back and forth. And then there's some pieces at the very end where I guess they're written post prison, when he actually got out. And it was just like his opinions on just like, you know, class and race, and just like I felt that it was very applicable to just like a lot of the shit. Like he was diagnosing a lot of shit, like that like still is like very much the issue. Like I said, right now.
The thing is, now we have so many distractions and toys. Even broke motherfuckers got a smartphone. They can play games on and listen to music and watch Netflix all day and everything. So it's like social media is a tool, but it's also a toy. And most people are fucking children, and they're going to turn a tool into a toy, regardless of what it is. I mean, it is funny though how motherfuckers can organize like a flash mob at the mall, like teenagers and shit. Then they can also turn around and organize
raking forests to prevent forest
exactly.
fires or something.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's just what it is that we need shepherdship and leadership. And we should be voting on issues. We don't need representatives, but we do need good models and inspiring figures and shit. And I feel like back in the civil rights movement, we had those. Whether it was a MLK or a or a Malcolm, who might have different ideologies, but they're both persuasive leaders who are trying to progress society and shit. And now, what do we got? Fucking Sean King and shit. Like
Talcum X.
Talcum X. We traded Malcolm X for Talcum
X. Yeah. He has a lot. They have a lot of good names for him, but yeah, they have a lot of creative names for Sean King.
And to his credit, though, I don't know if he's self-serving or what, but at least he steps up and tries. But again, it's all slacktivists. It's all tweeting. It's all. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. would go out and speak and inspire fucking thousands of people.
Yeah, but there was like a cultural like. And we're experiencing our own like cultural awakening now, but there was a cultural awakening then at that time. You had these issues, you know, obviously you had, you know, the civil rights movement that was going on at the same time as the Vietnam War.
The draft.
You know, and that draft.
The draft.
Yeah. And so like that brought to consciousness like the black people's plight in this country and its relation to the people's plight of other countries internationally with American imperialism. You know what I'm saying? That was starting to click in people's minds, not just black people.
Dude.
Yeah, exactly. Not just black people though, but white people. For the first time, it was like white people that were rejecting this shit. You know what I'm saying?
Jane Fonda.
That's what that movement was all about. Like it wasn't just like, it was like everybody started to see like make these connections. It's like, like it looked embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? Like for America, it was embarrassing to have, you know, the black people in this country, you know, being out in the streets, and at the same time them having like this Vietnam War, you know what I mean, that's going on, you know, literally simultaneously, you know, and like people having issues with that and seeing, like, wait a minute, whose side are we on? Why are we over there? We're actually like, we're on whose side? We're actually on the side of like the oppressors, you know what I'm saying? Like America was over there, you know what I'm saying? Like the people who were fighting for their freedom in Vietnam, those were the ones we were sent over there to kill. You know what I'm saying? And for what? And people were starting to make those connections, and people were starting to reject this, you know, reject the whole idea of
Hannah
like,
Jane.
You know, see people like, so like we that movement birthed like all of these, you know, like whether it was the beatniks, you know, like
I feel like you can't underscore the draft enough though. Once we went to an all volunteer service, now we wage wars and no.
But that was the way they pacified a lot of that shit. They did. They had a, you know, making the draft, like no longer having the draft and making like it the military service something that you can opt into.
It's called all volunteer service, but what it is it's insidious because it incentivizes the government and the leadership to keep us broke and desperate so that we will actually volunteer to go fucking carry a weapon in a desert and shit.
It was smart. It was smart on their part. You know what I'm saying? Because it furthered what they wanted. And it quelled, you know what I'm saying, a lot of the dissent that was going on. You know what I'm saying? Due to, like you said, the draft. It was a very strategic.
Dude, if they were drafting people to go to Afghanistan, there would have been a much healthier anti-war movement than Sidney Sheehan and fucking 6 people.
And they recognized that. They recognized
that's why they ended it.
Yeah, that's why they ended it. Yeah, it was very smart of them to end it. You know what I mean? Because it furthered that, you know, goal of continuing imperialism and doing it in a, like I said, that once they did that, that was also once they killed a bunch of people. Like, you know what I'm saying? Once they had, you know, once the CIA and the FBI, you know, Malcolm X gets bumped off and Martin Luther King gets shot and all these people, you know, and then we stopped doing the draft. Like all of that helped.
How do you feel? Now, we're not all on the debate here, but I don't give a fuck. That debate was so pointless. What could you say about it for more than 10 minutes?
Right.
But
I like
how do you feel?
Biden telling them to get out of the bunker, get out of the sand trap.
That's pretty
wanted
funny.
to throw that out there. Go ahead.
How do you feel about the far left back in the day? Draw a parallel between calling soldiers returning from war baby killers and some of the shit that a person who might classify themselves as Antifa, which isn't even really a fucking organization or anything. Right. It's more of a movement, a loose movement of disparate individuals who fly that flag or whatever on their own. So how the fringe left can sometimes do dumb shit. Back in the 60s, you had the Weather Underground who started blowing shit up. You had calling people baby killers, which... I mean, I guess if you want to take the moral high ground, you could say you should have dodged the draft. That's the point.
But if the shoe fits, you know what I'm saying? Like if you don't kill babies, because I know if I'm put in a situation where I'm not killing a baby. Like it doesn't matter if I'm over there and they're like, shoot, I'm not doing it.
Right. If you're there, like, and a lot of these people that were being called baby killers really literally weren't. It was that they were being associated.
They were being associated. Like
that's my point. We all seen Platoon. If you're in a platoon and Bunny fucking brains some kid, what are you gonna do?
Right.
You know, or you come home, you're a baby killer. Even
and now
to stop him or whatever. It's like
right. And that's
it's just that moral high ground that the left often takes, virtue signaling, and you know.
Well, again, like you associate virtue signaling with the left. I don't associate virtue signaling with the left. I associate virtue signaling with bourgeois liberals, like Russiagate. Like, okay, so like
that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So like when we talk about politics, like there are two main groups of people that both sides talk about: MAGA chuds and Russiagate libs. They're like the same. Like to say that would make people piss people off, but they are very much the same. Both.
What was the first one? MAGA what?
MAGA chud. A MAGA chud.
I haven't heard that term.
It sounds like 80s, like Chud, the movie Chud.
Yeah, like the movie Chud, Cannibalistic Human Underground. They call them MAGA chud. So a MAGA chud.
Chud was my shit back in the day.
Right.
Yeah. I watched it not long ago. Go ahead.
A MAGA chud is the stereotypical, like, you know, what you think of when you think of like one of those Trump supporting, flag waving, you know, like people that you see out where I'm at. Like you see these people all over. Like, and then the Russiagate lib is the fucking, again, that's the mirror opposite. You know what I mean? It's like,
but you say they're in the same like strata. Is that your point? When
yes,
you say
because
the same,
in
like,
terms
the bizarro mirror again.
Right. It's that same bizarro mirror thing where it's like, okay, these people on both sides, both of them don't have any sort of like actual. Right. They don't have
exactly what I was thinking.
They don't have any actual like political ideology outside of I'm on a team.
Yeah.
You know
it's like team sports. Yeah.
Right. It's just team sports because when you really like sit down and talk to them and like really like put them under, like, just be like, okay, like I'm going to have a serious conversation with you and I'm going to try to find out what you believe. It doesn't take very long for you to discover like, oh, they really don't have
status
much.
Quo.
Right. It's just like, they just, again, like that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
like,
there's definitely some immigration. There's some wedge issues and shit.
I feel like there are people who identify as liberal who don't fall into that group. Just like there are people who identify as conservative who don't fall into that group.
The whole identifying shit is the problem.
Yeah, exactly. It always
right.
breaks down there in almost every conversation I have about this subject.
Yeah.
You know,
everyone's definition of everything is different. So
it's constantly changing the definitions. I mean, a classical liberal back when, you know, in the 1930s was they were basically capitalists, you know.
Right. Well, the shit, liberals now are basically capitalists. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Turn to that, right. But to say left versus liberal and all those distinctions too. But yeah, if you just go issue by issue.
Oh, that's my thing. That's my thing. So you hit it right on the head, Chris. You hit it right on the head. So like, to me, if you're a capitalist, you can't consider yourself on the left. And that's the problem, that most of these people are capitalists and they think they're on the left. But see, to somebody who's actually on the left, they know, like, you can't be a capitalist and be on the
socialist
left.
Or, you know,
right, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, there's different forms of capitalism too.
Yeah, and there's different forms of left too.
Unregulated free
depending
market.
on who you ask. Yeah.
Right, but if you self-identify though, if you identify, I'm not saying, hey, there aren't forms of capitalism that with checks and balances that could work.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Democratic socialism is a form of capitalism.
Right, but here's the thing though. But no one that identifies typically no one that identifies typically as a democratic socialist would say I'm a capitalist.
Right.
See, that's this very specific type of person that would say I'm a capitalist.
Yeah. I hear your point. Yeah.
You know
like
what I mean?
to straight up say I am a capitalist, that puts you in a
right.
category that even if you're someone who thinks capitalism is
Overall okay,
probably the best
right.
system, but you just have to have the right regulations and
right.
checks and balances and power checks and all that.
They're pretty much a Ron Paul free market.
You want to identify yourself as a capitalist. You would identify yourself as something else that still incorporates capitalism. Yes.
Right. Yeah, and Ron Paul is like, again, like, you know, and then that goes off into, like I was telling you, Jason, like the original libtard.
Yes.
Right.
Libertarians.
Libertarians. I call them. Sound like some Star Wars shit. Libertarians are attacking.
They're the
and
OG.
The thing that each side is passionate about, I understand where each one comes from too. It's just each one has different priorities, you know, like a libertarians is personal sovereignty and freedom, you know, and being able to just move through the world without constraints and stuff. And I can appreciate that, you know, like everyone wants that too.
Right.
But they're not recognizing realities too that need to be addressed, you know.
Well, yeah,
you can say that about both of the quote unquote sides to a degree, you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that whole idea of sovereignty, like, right, like that's great, but it doesn't extend to everyone. That's the problem. You know what I'm saying? The problem is that, like, like, you know what I'm saying, like, specifically if you want to talk about just black people, like black people, it's like the whole civil rights struggle and up before it, you know, post it up to now, whatever. Like, it's always been about like black people's personal sovereignty. They just don't have it. Like they don't have it in a way that traditionally a white American would have it.
They are being straight up oppressed by, you know, law enforcement, especially, but also other systemic problems.
Lending, all kinds of shit.
Just all kinds of shit. I mean, it's even moved deeper than that. More
geographic
than
issues.
primal.
Right. And that's why when that's why these diehard staunch libertarians, that they fail to get that. They don't understand that. You know what I'm saying? They're like, well, you know what I mean? Like they just don't think, like if we started from in a world where everyone was equal, or like we just, you know what I'm saying, that'd be okay, great. But that's not the world we live in, and that's not that's not the system in which we live under. And to ignore that, you're not ever going to fix or address any of the problems. You're just going to continue. You know what I mean? They think
I always wanted to put out the real world Monopoly, where you roll a die at the beginning of the game to see who starts with a shitload of money and who starts with nothing. And then every time the game will work out the same fucking way. The guy who starts with nothing would never, ever win.
Pretty predictable outcome.
You know what I mean? But we play these games like Monopoly and everyone starts on equal footing.
Yeah, you all exactly. I mean, I have a pretty controversial opinion on estates, at least around people in my circles.
Ain't controversial to me, but
no estates.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it should be the opposite. I think it should be, you know, you could give a little to your kids or whatever to give them, but I feel like if you really want it to be a level playing field for every person coming into the world, because you could just by, you know, chance either be born to someone who has a family home in Martha's Vineyard, or you're born to like
succession
two drug addicted parents that aren't even there or whatever, or that abuse you or whatever. So, just the luck of the draw. I feel like everyone should start on an equal footing. So, estate taxes should be high as hell. Your kids got to go out and earn it again. Aren't the people who are against estate tax also the same people who believe in merit? Right? They always talk about merit being what.
Right.
You know, what should
bootstraps, hard work.
You know, the equality of opportunity, you know, versus outcome. That's what they always talk about. That's what this is. It's everyone. So I'm basically saying distribute. When someone dies, they give a little bit to their kids, but the rest goes
especially when it's
redistributed among. Yeah, exactly.
It's weird to pick an arbitrary number, but even if you said like even maybe Elizabeth Warren or some shit was capping it at like 10 million or something. I don't know if that was a state tax. I think that was just talking about taxing people to.
I don't know. She had so many plans.
Healthcare. I know she had a plan for everything.
A plan for everything except for the actually winning the Democratic nomination. She didn't have a plan for that. Oh yeah.
Shit. Point being, though, there's a number that you can somehow come to a conclusion is reasonable to keep within your family, because it might have to last generations and shit. Who knows, you know?
I mean, does it
he's-
though? Like,
I know,
I'm kind
I
of
know.
arguing that when you come into the world, each person's a completely equal person.
Well,
in
especially
terms
though,
of
if
what
it
you
went
start
just
with,
into
you
a
know, that's
poll
the ideal.
for
I mean,
a UBI or something, that's what it should be though. It's just
yeah,
spread
that's how
out,
it should
you know.
play out. I think that, yeah, that's the most,
No.
you know, practical way to do it.
Well, I think
Yang is not wrong though. That what you got to do is you got to give money directly to people. That's the only way to be equitable, because
Agreed.
otherwise it does get funneled through this system of bureaucracy and corruption, where special interests get their hands on that money, and it never fucking makes it
Well,
to the people who really.
Here's
should
the
have
selling point to capitalists: it creates consumers. If you
I
give
know.
money to everyone in America, then what do they become? Consumers. That's
Right.
good for all your businesses. You know, that's more money that people are out there like moving the economy with. You know, it'll actually grease the skids potentially.
You know
people
what would
are
be
worried how
interesting?
much it costs to have UBI, but it actually may end up being greater than the sum of its parts.
Here's an interesting
that
system.
it lubricates the economy better because you have
What-
spenders.
Right. What if you had a UBI though? Because people could still just take it and spend it all on Amazon, which fuck I might do. Because
Which
Yang
is good for
talks
the
about-
economy, though. I mean, other
I
than
know. Well,
monopoly
Yang talks about though
economy.
it'll create all these jobs and revitalize communities and shit. But what if, say, you gave $1,000 a month, or Germany's doing 1,400 for the next 3 years? They're trying some pilot program I saw. I don't know how widespread it is, but what if half of it was like a local card, like an earmark? You know, like when you go to college, you get like the meal card and it works on the campus and the dorm and all that. Like, what if
Yeah.
I live in Milwaukee, I got a Milwaukee card or a Wisconsin card that was only good at Wisconsin or Milwaukee area businesses or something? You could earmark a portion of that money for local shit to
Yeah.
truly
You could
ensure
control
that
it
it
to that degree.
revitalized it,
Yeah.
you know, instead of just being
Um,
spent on these fucking monopolized.
And you could say you can't
megacorps.
use it at certain places, liquor stores or whatever, if you want it to be at least,
Bitch, back up.
Ah, ha, ha. All right. Yeah. Maybe that's a bad idea.
I feel like we have to like get to a point where, as a society, where we start to think beyond like work. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Oh, totally agree on
Like
that.
right now, everything.
Robots are going to be doing it all anyway,
Like we need
pretty
to
soon.
think about a life. What life looks like when people don't work. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
completely agree. And
You know what I mean?
people still want to do things.
It's our
I know
natural
for
state.
myself, yeah, people will be craftsmen, and you'll have all this great handcrafted stuff. People, becoming masters at that.
right. And think
know.
about it. We don't really like, the only reason we work to live is just because that's the way we've set
Exactly.
this shit up. There's no other reason. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
if
Well, it was a necessity in the past.
Right, but like-
you
but
had
like-
to work to survive. But
here's the thing
that's
though. You
changing.
work. We would still work. Work would still be a thing, but it would be a thing that is based on necessity, not based
Yeah.
on increasing.
Oh, yeah.
One's
Growth,
right.
profit
Finances.
growth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be about like you accumulating income. You know what I mean? Or
It's about
accumulating
creating
wealth.
food because we need it.
Right.
to
It's
eat,
it's about
yes.
creating things to sustain the society. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like if we had our society, we could function and run and do all the shit we can for each other, and it only be based on that, which is people being able to live in a decent and humane life, a life, and like have everyone's fed, everyone's sheltered. I know this is a utopia. I know that like people say that's a utopia, but truthfully, there's absolutely no reason. Well, there is a reason, but there's really the only reason that it is the way it is because this is the way it was set up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Did you ever read that book Ishmael by Daniel Quinn? I think his name is. You ever hear of this book?
No, I haven't heard of it. Ishmael?
My buddy Casey gave it to me years ago, probably 15. Casey, sorry, didn't mean to dead name you. Lilith, my friend Lilith, gave me this book like 15 years ago, and he was he back then. It was fucking Casey, all right, back then.
Right.
Casey gave me this book.
I don't think you can misgender someone if you're referring
You're
to them in the
speaking
past.
past tense, right?
Right. If in the past they were, then I think you're safe.
Exactly. So this dude named Casey gave me this book, and he was explaining it to me, and it sounded ridiculous. Where basically there's this classified ad that says, "Do you want to know the secret to life?" or some shit like that, right? This is foggy, 15 years old, and this guy
Safety
is
not
kind of
guaranteed.
hopeless. He goes to answer, like a safety not guaranteed kind of thing, and he shows up, and it's like this one little room, and it's just this gorilla, this talking gorilla, sitting in this room. And this gorilla starts telling the story about when human beings split off from a hunter-gatherer culture to a totalitarian agriculture culture, and basically divided people up between, it was the leavers and now the takers. The takers are the ones who try and domineer their environment, and they raise cattle and they fucking plant crops and they take over land and they mold it and shit, versus the leavers who were hunter-gatherers. They hunt something small, they pick fruit, berries, whatever. The totalitarian agriculture, part of the problem is it created this food surplus, which then led to population explosion. Like, it was always containable and doable to a degree when it's small, when it truly is just little tribes, and nature provides enough for that much. But once you start trying to master nature, you create too much, and then you start exploding the population like rats, and then nature can't even keep up with the exponential population explosion. That was kind of the thesis of the book, I guess. But it is interesting because that is our normal state, this hunter-gatherer thing. It's not to work. And it was like the leavers, they had such a better life than the takers. You talk about a farmer, how hard they work. They got to be up at the fucking crack of dawn, fucking milking shit and doing this and cultivating crops and everything. But the hunter-gatherers, he's like, they played games, they fucked, they sang songs, they sat around the campfire and shit, because they spent 2 hours
until
a
the
day
great
picking fruit.
famine or drought of
Exactly.
And so the technology eventually protects us from to some degree, but
It is a problem, and it is.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, how can you balance those things,
right.
And then
Well,
the
it
problem
feels like
is,
we
too,
could
that-
return to that state now.
right?
thanks
But it's
to
like, who owns all that agriculture
Yes,
too?
it has to be
Like,
done
oh,
right.
then it became some fucking days of heaven shit where you got the lord and the manor owning all the land, and then all these fucking feudal carpetbaggers and shit working it. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
I mean, but this is that I guess the debate, man. The debate is just like it just put us in.
How refreshing would it be if they started
Right.
talking about that kind of
State of mind.
Yeah,
Hey,
like,
I got another one from the debate for you. Actually, I thought was funny. So Chris Wallace, he said, Kamala said, he told Biden that Kamala said you can't trust the scientists, right, about COVID, and Biden says she never said that. Kamala never said you can't trust the scientists, and Wallace says I have the quote right here, and he reads it and he goes, she said the scientists will be muffled or muzzled. And it's like, that's not the same thing as her saying that the scientists can't.
Well, that's Chris Wallace, who works at Fox News.
Exactly. I know. But I was just like, I wanted to bring attention to that because so often that happens where people will quote someone but not really get it right.
It's a bad premise.
I give the real quote and the context even better because you can take things out of context. But right there, he was paraphrasing something that wasn't at all what she had meant to say,
anyway. You know what I have to, here's my this is my, how do I put this? This is my summation of the entire debate. Okay. I'll give it to you in one single soundbite in one sentence. Are you guys ready?
Hit me.
You're just going to fart?
No. This is my thoughts after watching the debate. Mm-hmm. Bernie would have won.
Oh yeah.
That's it. I know that's it. Like that's it. Like if he was the candidate right now.
Yeah.
It would
I just had a flash. When you said that, I just had an image of coming out of that debate right now. And it would have been a whole different animal for sure.
But he would have won the election too.
He would have won. That's the point.
Yes. No, I know.
Like the actual general election. Like, because I'm just looking at it like, it's like, you got these two people up here and neither one of them are addressing any of the important issues going on right now. Like the pandemic, like that we're going through right now. If there was any time to look at changing our healthcare system away from a privatized one to one like every other fucking country, every other first world country has, you know what I'm saying? It would be now. Now is the time. Like, besides the fact
I've told people that's probably my number one thing.
If that was
definitely like top three.
I don't like Biden at all whatsoever, but if he was going to do that, I'd vote.
Yeah, it'd be a no-brainer. Yeah,
I'd be like, yo, whoever's offering that shit. If Trump was offering that, I would never vote for Trump. But if he's offering healthcare, I would at least give it pause. Like, yo, hold up, because we actually need that shit.
I might actually vote for Trump if he was given health care.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I
was
would,
doing it.
right. If
Yeah,
somebody,
totally.
if a candidate said right now they were going to do that, I'd be like, all right, I'm probably going to go
Here's
to
the
the
thing:
polls.
I wouldn't believe him, so I wouldn't.
Right. I wouldn't vote for him either. But again, I
What
said
form
this.
it would take.
This is the problem. This is the problem with the Democratic platform, and Biden owned it today. He was like, "I am the I am the I am the Democratic
That's
Party."
the
Which is a weird flex.
problem.
Right. That's the problem. So, like, all Trump
Yeah.
would have to do right now, right, if he was sinking in the polls, right, which he is, right, but if he's sinking in the polls and he gets too far behind, he could just be like, "I'm going to legalize marijuana." He would win.
Yeah.
That's not on the Democratic platform.
Got my vote.
That should be on the platform just to negate him from actually doing that. Because if he does that, he's going to win. Dead ass. Like, he would win right now.
Hey, he could even make that as a police reform issue.
Yeah, like it's just sitting right there. These are these things that are sitting right there, and
They're
neither
gutless fucking turds, dude.
Yeah, it's just sitting right there. If you really want to win, like either side, if they really wanted to win, they would be like, all right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and marijuana's already on that path anyways.
Yeah.
It's already there. Just go ahead and do it.
And our economy's suffering. There's billions of dollars waiting to be,
it makes perfect sense. It makes
perfect sense.
Less shit with the border, more border security.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
but
it cuts the legs out from the cartels.
But neither one of them will do it because, again, the people that, they've got special interests, they're in the pockets of people.
They're beholden to.
Yeah, they're beholden to, we know.
Well, here's my thing. We talk about the public option. Again, I like a lot of Yang's ideas. And it was funny because Chris Wallace was essentially saying, would the public option not kill insurance companies? That's why I like it.
Right.
I like it as a way to strangle them.
Insurance companies. I haven't met a single person who loves their insurance.
Exactly. That was fucking driving me nuts when they were saying.
When Biden's like, no, it wouldn't. They still get to choose.
Like,
it's only for poor people.
Politicians love.
But exactly. But what the moderator and both candidates are revealing to everyone right there in that moment, if they're paying attention, is that's who they care about.
Yes, the lobbyists.
Because the average person gives zero fucks about the private insurance companies. Like, who gives? Who has
a person despises them?
They hate them. They're one of the worst things in their lives.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, these people.
Trust me, personally speaking.
How many movies, The Rainmaker, Civil Action, all this kind of shit of like insurance companies just deny you coverage? That's how they make money, to deny coverage.
Here's another thing I say too. Is a couple things I like to say. Is one. Some people will say if it's run by the government, it'll be less efficient, and that's not even usually the case anyway. They still want it to be like private hospitals, but they're fun. It's all just the money is controlled by the government. There's no insurance. The insurance company system isn't used,
single payer,
and it could even compete against it. But the other thing I like to say is, again, people who are, company favored, or they are inclined to, be fans of business and such. Why burden businesses with having to navigate this, get insurance policies for their employees and such? Why not let a widget company do what it does best and make widgets, and not every company in America that
has to have a healthcare department
has to figure this shit out, right? Why is that intrinsically tied to companies providing it?
And not only that, you're all about personal sovereignty, like you said. Usually the people are making those same arguments, and it takes away your mobility. You can't leave one job to go take another opportunity, right? Because then your family has a fucking gap in insurance coverage, and you got to pay COBRA rates and shit. Yeah, that's why the companies actually like it, because it keeps you under their thumb and shit.
Yep.
Yeah, people are like going through so much shit, you know what I'm saying? Like right now at this time, you know what I mean? And it's like, just listen to these guys debate about this, not even touch on any of this shit. It's not. It's just, again, it's like we're just so fucked. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're just so fucked. Like, because they're either one is gonna do shit. Like, again, like the Democratic platform that is a joke. Then people and then like the people who are like so freaking out about Trump, getting reelected, they bring up I've watched it. They'll be like, here's 100 reasons why you should vote for Biden, and they'll start listing the 100 reasons of the Democratic platform, and I'm like, half of that shit ain't there. I'm like, you're just making that up. They're not doing any of that shit. What are you talking about? They're not.
They always say, and they always play lip service, like, oh, we're gonna bring Bernie's electorate into the fold by just paying lip service. They say we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. They don't do shit. Obama didn't do shit, and he had a fucking Democratic majority his first 2 years. Didn't do shit.
Oh, which is another thing I want to talk about. RB fucking G. Okay. The RBG worship by the
That
liberals
she should have retired during Obama's era.
is so cringe. It is the most cringe, like the idolatry. Like it's insufferable. Like I'm like, stop it. First of all, this woman is like, you're turning her into this mythical figure, right? And I'm not discounting, you know.
Yeah, she was a badass little old lady.
I'm not discounting any of her, but I'm not discounting any of her significance in terms of like her role in historically, okay, she was a woman elected to the Supreme Court, et cetera, all that shit, right? But like there are many sides to her that people are fucking ignoring, okay? One.
What are some okay.
Dude, he's about to get his Hitchens excoriating Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa.
Personally, like, yo, RGB was like, in terms of like racial issues, there's a whole lot of shit she was fucked up on in race. Like, she's like, you could argue, and you wouldn't be wrong to say that RBG was very anti, like, affirmative action. You know, I'm very anti, like, the shit she said about Colin Kaepernick. Like, RBG is not the woman that they think she is.
I'll have to look that up. I'm ignorant of some
yeah,
of
yeah.
things.
She said it was dumb. Like when he was taking a knee, she thought it was dumb and he shouldn't be doing it. It's disrespectful, etc. See, she's of a specific background of a specific class.
Age. That's part of the problem of having these lifetime appointments.
All of these
out of touch.
Yeah, people fail to realize that all of these Supreme Court justices, right? They're all went to Harvard or Yale. All of them.
By their very job requirement, they're out of touch.
Their pedigree, they're not like you guys. The guys, people that want, they're just not. We
need Vincent Gambino to rise to the Supreme Court.
Just take a random. Take a random sampling from the population. Imagine what you get, man. It'd be like the Whack Packers. What's that?
But if she really,
the Utes are not fucking super predators.
the Utes and them. Nah, but like if she really like you were saying, like she should have stepped down. Like the one we know now that the most opportune time for her to have stepped down from her position, if she really cared about, right? If she really cared about what she supposedly the thing she stood for, like, you know what I mean? Like she would have said, yo, when Obama got in office and they had control of the Senate, that was the time. She was already in her 80s and already had cancer twice. That was the moment for her to step down, and they could have put in a replacement, and they couldn't have stopped her.
Even when Merrick Garland couldn't get through, imagine if she had stepped down then. They couldn't hold two spots. He would have got in.
But here's the thing, though. Somebody brought this up.
Not that Merrick Garland's that great either. I
think it was Virgil Texas. That said this shit, which is maybe it was RBG. Maybe RBG was the reason she wouldn't step down, and the reason she stayed so long was for like the whole idea of like she was betting on Hillary Clinton winning and having a woman president be the one who nominates her replacement. Because again, we know how these bourgeois liberals.
Which is ironic because the ones that Obama did put in, Sotomayor is a female, right? Who put in Kagan? Was that Clinton?
It might have been Clinton.
Your hypothesis is right. Imagine the moment when Trump did get elected, despite her expectations.
That probably gave her fourth bout of cancer and shit.
Right. She probably was like, oh, shit, I got to hang on now.
But see,
she was exercising her ass off.
But that speaks to the way these like bourgeois liberals think. Like they are obsessed with these like these performative like token gestures of like, you know what I mean? It's like the symbol. Yeah, they're all about the symbolic shit. You know what I mean? They're not about anything material. It's all symbolic. You know what I mean? Like that's what they love. Well, look how it looks. It's like, yo, fuck that. People want things that are going to change their life in a material way. Like they don't want. You could keep your symbols. Like people like are out here struggling. People need this shit. You know what I mean? But see, they're when
real practical.
They're even caught up. It is the symbol game because even a lot of the work they do is tearing down statues of assholes from 200 years ago.
Right.
And shit.
I know, really.
Right.
I mean,
and I'm all for
let's go get that money. Fuck no, wait.
Those statues.
We'll deal with those statues after we go get that.
Yeah, it's just focusing your efforts. Yeah, where's the battle?
But I get it though because when you feel like you can't do anything else, then you attack symbols. You know what I'm saying? That's what you do. And see, that's what the thing about like establishment Dems and centrists like this is what they do. So they automatically, the reason they're so anti, like are so like anti like non-voters, like people who express that they don't feel like voting. The reason they attack these people, right, is because they've already given up any notion that they can do anything to get the people in, like any of these politicians to do anything.
Yeah,
like they know
it's
that
futile.
it's futile. They're not going to do anything. So the only thing they can do is turn to the people and attempt to shame them and be like, you know, like
use
the public consciousness.
Because they know in their mind, they know that they can't do anything to move the Democratic Party and the Democratic elite. They know that. They're not going to do shit. They know that. So what? But it's easier to be like, well, let's just turn to the people.
Yeah, and you get to come out clean after the election is over. I did my part. You fucking assholes. Just like anyone, like Chris and I both voted fucking green last time. I catch shit for it all the time. I ain't ashamed at all. Fuck all of you. I did it even in swing state. It didn't matter. He was in Cal.
I like to encourage they
tried to blame
a paradigm of more parties.
Sorry to cut you off.
No parties.
No. Go ahead. Yeah,
but they try to blame the RGB shit. I've seen people try to blame the RBG shit on fucking Jill Stein.
Right.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
here's the thing. I didn't vote for Jill Stein either. I wasn't like, Jill Stein's the one that wants to whatever. It was just like, let's try and build another option.
That's my point. Yeah.
Plus,
I wanted
my
to vote
swing
for the thing that would change the system more, even to some slight degree, you know?
Right. And in my quote unquote swing state, Hillary was polling up by 7 to 9 fucking points. So I thought I had leeway.
And I was in California, so you knew that was going to
Not that I would have voted for her anyway. I might have just not voted.
Look,
Again,
That's your right too.
I was a Bernie supporter in 2016. I held my fucking nose when it came down to it and voted for Hillary, which I did not like. I felt bad about it, but I went in and did it, and I regret it to this day.
Right,
like,
and I don't regret not voting.
You know what I'm saying? So like, exactly. I sort of kind of like feel envious of you that you didn't. But I'm like, so when these people tell me, oh, you didn't, I'm like, no, I did that. Like you can't hold that over my head. I fucking did that, and I'm telling you that that's not going to work. Like, and not everybody's going to fall for that shit.
Here's the point too.
Kyle Kalinske, if you know who he is, he was just talking, I think, this morning about exactly that. That when I forget what case it was, but it was like a Jill Stein. It might have been Jill Stein, but they asked the people, if she didn't run, where would your vote have gone? And it wasn't 100% to Hillary.
Exactly.
It was like 25 or something to Hillary.
Or they might have
some
not
even
voted.
to Trump, and a lot just said they wouldn't vote. So yeah, like everyone assumes that you're pulling 100% of the votes away from the the prime candidate if you go
because they're quote unquote progressive, but the Democratic Party isn't. But here's the other thing, and so Ryan, we know these dudes who are harping every day on social media. Swing state voters, fucking get out and vote. It's like, what you really mean is people who would vote for who I vote for get out and vote. You don't want swing state voters to get out because half of them wouldn't vote for your fucking guy anyway.
Right. You have the fact that they would
basically just say what you're saying. Vote for Biden. Don't try to make it about voter participation.
Right, but the fact that they would even say that shows that they have no fucking clue about like the Midwest or any of like these America's heartland. So they don't have any idea, like, because somebody that has knowledge of that wouldn't say that shit.
Right.
They would be like, oh, they would say swing state voters, and then immediately that thought would pop in their head. They'd be like, oh yeah, we're not a fucking monolith, and not everybody's gonna fucking be out there voting. Right. If they show up, there's no guarantee that these people are gonna vote for fucking Biden. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you talking about?
That's what I'm saying, exactly.
Yeah.
And these are the same people
motivated not to at all, right?
These are the people who just love playing the blame game. It's always the blame game. So they feel that third-party voters and non-voters, fuck that. That's who we blame for Trump.
I don't think you could ever knock anyone for voting the person they want, even if it isn't
I'm saying.
Vote
your values.
Yeah, I mean, you got to respect that.
You got to respect it. Like I said this shit all the time.
Motherfuckers.
I said, yo, you're allowed to complain if you vote or not. Period.
Yes.
Period.
Because not voting is in and of itself.
It is a statement.
It's a statement. It's you're exercising your right. You know what I'm saying? And they always want to. Here's another thing that fucking bothers me.
People died.
Right. They always want to.
We had that conversation the other day.
They always want to talk about that specifically. They want to say, "Oh, people died for you to vote." The civil rights movement, or fuck that. Black liberation in this country was more than just the vote. But they want to distill it all to just that. Like, yeah, there were people voting was part of it, But there was many other, it wasn't just about voting. Like there were so many other initiatives and fucking things that
Well, they act like people in the
At the very
military
least, not
died
segregation.
Right. There's all sorts of fucking issues on the table because when you're talking about that, you're talking about like the Black liberation struggle, and just like it's beyond just fucking voting. But they want to make it seem like, oh, look, all Black people died to just vote. No, it was deeper than that. And there were plenty of motherfuckers back then who were like, I'm not voting. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not voting unless there's something on the table that makes sense for my class.
You're talking about the Karens. You're talking about white women's suffrage. Hey, baby.
You know what I'm saying? But there's a lot of people that say that shit. There's
How
a
many
lot
of them died?
You know what I mean?
Right. How many Karens died?
Don't get me started on like white feminism. Like white feminism is like,
no, I don't know how much time we got. So
right.
I keep waiting for that buzzer to hit, man.
Like that's a whole other topic. You know what I mean? Where it's like, again, I've always say this all the time. Like feminism is white feminism unless explicitly stated otherwise.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? By default. So when they start talking about feminism, unless they say, you know, in Black women or in blank women, they're explicitly always talking about white women. When you talk about, just listen, like pay attention the next time a feminist conversation is brought up. And it's like, this has historically been something that's been a major issue. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like feminist movements, you know what I mean? Like it's always been that shit. Like who's one of the what was their name? The prominent white feminist. They visit her grave. I forget her. I'm blanking on her name right now.
Oh shit. God damn it.
Susan B. Anthony,
Yes.
right? Was it Susan B. Anthony? I think it's Susan B. Anthony.
Yeah.
Susan B. Anthony she's on record as saying disparaging shit about Black people.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They were fighting specifically for white women to have equal footing with white men.
Right. They were like, oh, how the fuck do you get the Black man to get the vote before the woman? You know, like the white woman, huh? You know, saying shit like that. You know what I mean? Like so these people aren't like, they want to make it seem like, yeah, you're right. There are marginalized groups, and women fall into that. But when we talk about like oppression, right, in terms of like one of the most privileged group outside of white men, the second most privileged group is fucking white women. And when we talk about, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to acknowledge that shit. And that's the shit that bothers me the most. I'm like, I'm like, yo, we're going to have these conversations. Let's have these conversations. Let's be real about it. Like, let's talk about these issues. You know what I mean?
I can't imagine the experience of a Black woman is the same at all as a white woman, you know? So as to your point.
No.
Yeah, exactly. It's not anything similar. It's a whole different
and so you see
world.
That specifically, right? So when you talk
generally speaking.
Right, when you talk about like intersectionality, right? And the way that they apply intersectionality now is like totally not the way it was intended, right? Because intersectionality is about invisibility. So what that means is if you're Black and you're a woman, and like, you know, like typically like you get, when they talk about women's issues, because you get ignored because you're not the default, you're invisible. So like, just like if you talk about like gay issues and you happen to be Black, gay, and a woman, that's like those three, because you're part of, like typically you're not the default when the conversation gets brought up. You know what I'm saying? That's the same, like that's what intersectionality is. It's not about like, oh, you're more oppressed. It's about like, no, the default when we talk about specific issues pertaining to specific groups, because of the combination of the identities, if you want to like, because you're not the default, or you're never centered when we have these conversations. Yeah,
you're not the poster child.
Right.
You're not exactly what we're talking about.
That's
Here's the other funny thing too, though, like Kamala.
Oh my God! Here we go.
Is Kamala a Black woman? Yeah, sort of.
She is.
Has she lived the experience you're talking about when you say Black women? No, because the class issue again. Because...
Right. And here's the crazy thing about Kamala. Kamala, again, just like Mayor Pete, a fucking father was a Marxist professor. You know what I'm saying? Which is like, they grow up to be these like total like opposites.
Different
I guess
class again.
Alex P. Keaton shit, dude.
Right. It's like these children of these Marxist professors, they just grow up to be these fucking like, Jesus, you know what I mean? Like,
that's how they rebel.
Rebelling, exactly.
Right. They're definitely rebelling because they're not anything like the. But then Kamala's a weird thing because like, again, like they try to make her seem like first of all, like, yeah, she was born out here and like she moved to Canada, you know what I'm saying? Obviously she has the Indian side of her family. Like,
so
there's
much
a
of it
lot-
though is about, there is this, people talk about this universality of experience.
Mhm.
This is the experience white males have. This is the experience. It's like, no, hardly any of that shit really applies. It really is. So, I mean, of course, there's white privilege,
Mhm.
there's male privilege, etc. But we act like she's indicative or representative of
Not at all.
the typical.
Right.
But a lot of white
Right.
women will say, I want to vote